Hello, it's me again, Attorney Edgar Pascua, and you are viewing now the fifth part of our lecture series on election law. We are now on the matter of candidacy. The matter of candidacy stems from the opportunity and the right, well, more of a right, to partake in public service. According to the Declaration of Policies and Principles, under the Constitution, the state shall guarantee equal access to opportunities for public service and prohibit political dynasties as may be defined by law. This provision, sadly, is not self-executing as legislation is still required to make this uh, obligatory, to make this enforceable. Foremost, you have the matter of political dynasties. Well, the reality is there has yet to be a very strong law or a law itself that prohibits political dynasties. At the present time, there is not even a clear and concise definition of what constitutes political dynasties. But on the matter of candidacy, we have this case of Pamatong versus Comelec. Apparently, Pamatong, who has been well known to have run for several offices, was at one time declared a nuisance candidate. Pamato, who is also a member of the IBP, cited the equal access provision as earlier stated, no? Saying that there shall be equal opportunities for public service. Diba? According to the Supreme Court, however, the provision under that article, Article 2, are generally considered as not self-executing, and there is no plausible reason for according a different treatment to the equal access provision. Who is a candidate? A candidate is a person aspiring for or seeking an elective public office who has filed a certificate of candidacy by himself or through an accredited political party, a groupment, coalition of parties. So a candidate may run for office as an independent or may run for office on through the help of the political party or a groupment where he belongs with. What uh, what are the qualifications for office? For most, before defining specifically what the qualifications for office, we have to recall that if we are to read the qualifications for public service, especially for those who are to be elected, these qualifications are continuing, meaning one should possess them from the moment he applies for a certificate of candidacy or elections, because some of the requirements, as you know, need only exist not in, on the time of the registration, but on the time of the election itself. No, but these qualifications must be continuing from the moment when they are required in the first place until the end of the term of the public officer. The loss of a qualification will result to the person's removal from office. Qualifications for public office are continuing requirements and must be possessed not only at the time of the appointment or election or assumption of office, but also during the officer's entire tenure or term. Once any of the required qualification is lost, his title may seasonably be challenged. But we have to note the age requirement for those who are in the party list system. Because remember, if you belong to the youth party list group, you have to be um, at most 30 years of age. So 25 to 30. The problem is, what if during your term, within the 3-year period of your term, you reach the age of 31? According to law, any youth sectoral representative who shall attain the age of 30 during his tenure shall be allowed to continue his office until the expiration of his term. So perhaps can be 32 by the time his term ends. No? So in your study of the law, in your notes, you may find all these qualifications for public officers under the Constitution. No? For the president, vice president, senators, and the members of the party list groups. Age requirement, the voter status, and the residency, education, and citizenship. For those stated in the Constitution, the citizenship required are that they should be natural born. No? For the president, vice president, senators, and members of Congress, no? And including the party list. No? For the local officers, they need not be natural born generally, but they generally must also be able to read and write. But look for the specific education or literacy requirement for the specific um, local officials. No? It is my humble opinion that you need to memorize all of these qualifications, especially if you intend to take the bar exam. There is the residency requirement. Oh, okay. A residence requirement is rooted in the desire of the officials of localities to be acquainted not only with the metes and bounds of their constituencies, but with the constituents themselves, their needs, difficulties, aspirations, potentials for growth and development, and all matters vital to their common welfare. Um, Therefore, it speaks of familiarity. Okay, they need to be familiar not only with their territories, their legislative territories, or their governmental territories, but also with the needs of the people, of their electors, which he should personally have a first-hand knowledge and experience, and it's only possible if he resides with the people in his territory. No? You must remember that residency from previous discussions mean domicile. Of course, you know that at this point. No? You have another requirement, which is citizenship. Why is it again required for the voter to be a citizen? Again, because sovereignty resides in the people and government authority emanates from them. There is also a sort of an impression of loyalty and accountability, and also um, it's uh, it's perhaps unfair for many, but uh, Duralex said Lex ano. Um, well, in fact, some of the positions require you to be a natural born. So, on the matter of reacquisition of citizenship, if you are a Filipino, you have perhaps gone abroad, lost your citizenship, and reacquired it because of RA 9225 or the Citizenship Reacquisition Act, retention and reacquisition. When you avail of RA 9225, you shall enjoy, after taking your oath, you shall enjoy full civil and political rights, including the right to vote. But if you intend to run for office, there is an additional requirement. You have to make a personal and sworn renunciation of any and all foreign citizenship before you uh, can run for office. No? You renounce it before an officer who is authorized to administer an oath. No? There's this additional restriction in RA 9225 that disqualifies you to run for office if you are a candidate for or occupying a public office in another country. Okay? Or if you're in active service or as a commissioned or non-commissioned officer in the armed forces of another country. Okay. Some cases, one is Jacot versus Dal. Here, Jacot, um, well, he won. He won actually. Um, uh, the vice mayoralty post in his town, no. But his candidacy was questioned because it turned out that he was only reacquired his Philippine citizenship. Okay? He once renounced kasi his Philippine citizenship. Court said that si ano kasi, Jacot said na when he reacquired his Philippine citizenship, he took his oath of allegiance to the Republic of the Philippines made before the Philippine consular office. And he also um, filed his certificate of candidacy thereafter. And he took, it's subscribed, no? But taking an oath of allegiance and declaring yourself to be a citizen is different from the renunciation of office. Sorry, renunciation of citizenship, of foreign citizenship. These are two different things. No? There's a specific requirement kasi RA 9225 that requires you to renounce, not only to take allegiance, but also to renounce your foreign citizenship. This one also, the Guzman versus Comelec, um, believing that when he filed the certificate of candidacy, he already renounced his allegiance to another country. No, RA 9225 is very specific. You have really to renounce it before an officer authorized to administer oath. So the Guzman here, you read this case. This is very interesting. Para sa kanya constructive renouncement of foreign citizenship, hindi siya pwede, no? What if you lost your Philippine citizenship? You are natural born, you lost your Philippine citizenship, and then you reacquired it one way or another, no? What is your status as a Filipino citizen? According to this case of Bengzon versus HRET, you regain your original status as a natural born, no? Because you were once natural born, you lost it, you regained it, you are reinstated as a natural born citizen. The matter of term limits, why are there term limits under our uh, laws, no? For public officers, especially those elected, no? It reduces the incumbency advantage because if you are an incumbent, you have all your machineries and influence that would win you perpetually your elections. But because of term limits, you have to step down so that others who are not incumbent can run for office. Second, term limits encourages fresh perspectives because new minds are infused in the government when you know voted officers step down. They may have new priorities, new visions for the country or for their municipalities or cities. No, it's also possible that because of term limits, an elective official will really make most of his limited time in office. He will have more decisive policy making and more, um, gusto or zeal in his execution of law or enforcement of policies. For term limits, you can be familiar with the term limits of our public servants: 6 years for president, 6 years for the vice president, up to two consecutive terms. Senators for 6 years, up to two consecutive terms. Members of the House, 3 years, up to three consecutive terms. Local officials, 3 years term, no? Except for barangay officials, up to three consecutive terms for the same position. Those are the term limits of our public officers. We proceed with certificates of candidacy on the next video. I hope that um, uh, this video help you in your study of election law. Once again, this is Attorney Edgar Pasqua. See you on part 2 uh, of this part 5 of the video. Thank you.